Welcome to the Bag Maker's Workroom. I am Chris with Simply Classic, and today is Thursday, March 5th, 2026. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't join live, watch the recording on YouTube at any time. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when I post a new video or when we go live. So I would like to say hello to a few of the people in the chat. We had some things going on before the show. So Stephanie says, awesome. I'm a tad early, but this is the first time I have had the opportunity to watch a live. Hooray. Well, we are happy you're joining us, Stephanie. Fixation Fiber Function says hello from Alberta, Canada. Fantastic. We're glad you're here. And then we have Connie saying hello from South Carolina. Of course, South Carolina is right around the corner. We've had some spring weather here in Georgia, to say the least. It's been a little warm, probably close to 80 degrees. And I know it's not like that everywhere, but spring is definitely in the air. The only problem is here in Georgia, sometimes we go from winter to summer and we don't have a spring. So hopefully we have some cooler weather here coming. So today's a sewing episode, and here's what we have planned. We're going to start by going over what's new in the Simply Classic Scoop. Then I'm going to show you how to turn the Kaplan into a more masculine bag. We're going to feature our customers' bags in Artistry Avenue, and then finally we'll announce giveaways for the week. Before we get started, please take a second to click the thumbs up button below. It does really help and makes a huge difference, and I do appreciate it. So now it's time for the Simply Classic Scoop, and this is where I tell you what's new here at Simply Classic. So the past few weeks have been very busy as normal. It seems like we're always busy, which is a good thing, but we're working on a new filming studio. We have one more building over at our new warehouse that we really weren't sure what to do with and decided to turn it into a filming studio. So we have been busy getting that fixed up and ready to go. And basically the paint is going on the walls now, and we should be having, the flooring and everything else going in here in the next week or so. So hopefully by the end of the month, if not sooner, fingers crossed, we will be in our new studio. We're excited to show that to you. We have, of course, some other fun updates. We always have lots going on. And so we're going to show you what else we have. So first, let's start out by doing a preview of this month's live streams. So today we're hacking the Kaplan pattern to make it more masculine. Next week, we're going to talk about making bag charms. March 19th is a sewing episode. So we're going to actually be making a charm for the farfalla. And I'm probably going to show you a little bit of the farfalla. The zipper that is in the seam can sometimes be a little challenging. So we'll probably go over how to do that. On March 26th will be all about unique strap connectors. And then the first week in April, I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to be doing a Zara pattern hack. And it's one that I've been wanting to hack for a while, although there's so many really fun ideas. So I'm excited for that episode. So I hope you'll join us each Thursday. If you have any questions or topic ideas, we'd love to hear them. You can suggest anything you'd like to. Email us at share@simplyclassic.net. Just send something over and with your suggestions, and we will definitely take a look. So last week, we sponsored a sewing retreat that was hosted by the Georgia Sewing Squad. I wasn't there the whole weekend, but I did have a chance to visit and meet everyone and talk to the Georgia Sewing Squad. It's the four ladies sitting there with me in the front, and there was 20 people at the retreat. Now, this retreat took place at Coosa Lodge in the mountains of Georgia, and they've got a new building there. And in their new building, they have, of course, sleeping accommodations, a huge kitchen, a huge sewing area. And so these ladies got to basically stay there. Some brought machines. Danny also brought her machines, industrial machines, so they could use those as well. And they were just busy. I think they were there 4 days, and they were making 4 bags. So when I visited, they were making the Julie, and they all did a fantastic job. They have kits cut for them already so they can get started sewing as soon as they walk in. And it's really a great event. So I am glad I got to stop by and spend a few hours with them and chat with everyone. And I just had to take a picture. This was a cookie they gave us. I say us because my husband joined me. And so they gave us each one of these cookies. And I think it was, I can't remember if it was Sarah, a friend of Sarah's. She actually made this. This is like a shortbread cookie with the frosting on top. It was so pretty. I almost didn't want to eat it. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I just had to take a picture because I thought it was so cool. And I did eat it, by the way. It was good. All right. So thank you to them. Now, we want to tell you about an amazing workshop we have coming up in July in Broussard, Louisiana at A&A Sewing Center. So this is going to be my first time teaching in Louisiana. I'm really excited about that. It's going to be a little different than most workshops because we'll be making 2 bags over the course of 2 days. It's going to be like a day and a half. One day we're going to make the Julie, and then the second day we're going to make the Sorella. So you can see the bag samples here, and these are the actual materials that we're going to be using. So the Julie is going to be in aqua with camel handles, and then the Sorella is going to be in chocolate brown with the diagonal D motif, which is diagonal B motif, which is a designer-inspired faux. So basically, the way this is going to work is they have 2 sessions. Okay, they have a session July 10th and 11th, and then they have a session July 11th and 12th. And so both of them include both bags, and you can choose which session you would like to attend. It includes your class kit, materials, lunch, and snacks, and the use of a Janome HD9 to make your bags. So registration is open right now. You can find the link in the description below and on our events page. And I really hope to see some of you there. We're excited about this. It's going to be a really great event. They have a retreat center that they're offering people to stay in instead of having to get in a hotel. So when you go to the link, of course, it's going to take you to the A&A Sewing Center website so you can sign up there. Okay, you're not signing up through us. You're actually going to be signing up through them. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Now, if you cannot make it to Louisiana, we have some online events coming up as well. The first is a sew-along on March 24th, which is a Tuesday. And we're going to be hacking the Kaplan pattern and turning it into a more masculine messenger bag. And this is actually the hack that we're going to be doing. I'm going to show you how to do this today. That's going to be our sewing episode. So you can kind of see the process before you sign up. But understand that the sew-alongs are so much fun because people do their own thing. So take this as inspiration. You could either make a bag similar to this, a more masculine bag, or you can make the Kaplan. Okay, you don't have to follow along everything I do exactly. We actually go through on the sew-along, and I talk to each one of you, and you get to show us what you're doing. And it really inspires. I mean, basically, when we get through the sew-along, people can't wait to make the next one because they're so inspired by everything that everybody did. So it is going to be on Zoom, and it is very interactive. And you are going to you can turn your camera on, you can turn it off. It does not matter. However you want to do it is fine. The cost of the sew-along is $39.99. And when you sign up, you're going to receive the Kaplan PDF pattern. You're going to receive the pattern changes and measurements for the hack. You're going to be told, basically, you are going to have to prepare some things before the sew-along because this is a 4-hour sew-along, and I don't think there's any way we can finish the lining in the bag in 4 hours. Okay, so we're going to have some things you have to get done ahead of time. We have a schedule that we follow, so you'll get that schedule so you can kind of see what's going to be happening, and then a link to join the Zoom meeting. So you get all that. So also afterwards, we send out the recording so you can go back and watch it at any time. And of course, again, today's episode is all about the hack, so stick around to get more details. We also just announced another Nina class in April, and this is the online class that we'll be teaching making the Nina shoulder bag using a chrome tanned lambskin leather. The class is completely virtual, and we will send you a class kit with most materials you need to make the bag. On the left, you'll see some photos of the Nina, which was inspired by this Michael Kors bag. I love the belted look. I really think it's beautiful. And the way these straps are constructed is gorgeous. You can learn how to do all of that in class. The dates are April 17th through the 27th. It is an intermediate level course. And what that means is we don't go over some of the basic leather skills. Okay. That was in like the band class and some of the other leather classes. So we're going to go over some of them. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you're just going to be thrown to the wolves, as they say, but some bag making experience and some leather experience is probably a good idea for this bag. The cost is $350 and includes 6 pre-recorded video lessons, 3 live Zoom check-ins, lifetime access to your student portal, and your class kit with the materials. Now, we have some new kit colors this time. Lavender and honeydew are the new colors. So we figure, spring is kind of in the air for some of us. If not, we're certainly wishing and hoping it would be. And so this is, it's going to be in April. Hopefully by the time you get your bag done, end of April, you'll be ready for spring and summer. And honeydew and lavender are beautiful summer colors. We also brought back the blue gray and the burgundy because they're just so very, very popular. Now, let me just say the honeydew is a really pale green. Okay. Here, maybe it's hard to get a picture of. It might even look a little yellow here. It really isn't. It's a very pale green, really beautiful. One of my favorites. So you can, okay, let's see. Grammy Jan Kim says, I would like to make the Nina, but my industrial does not have a walking foot. Will I be okay? So I guess my question is, do you typically have problems with the leather or faux leather, like slipping? If you do, you're probably going to have the same problem with this. But if you've kind of figured a way to work around it and you don't, you're probably going to be fine. I really think you will. We actually had a student finish it on a domestic, like a Burnett 08, did the whole thing. And it's not obviously an cylinder arm. She was able to do all of the stitching. So I think you're going to be fine. And especially if you have a cylinder arm, it's a bonus. I wouldn't worry too much about it, not having a walking foot. I think you're going to be okay on that. Okay, so you can find the registration link in the description of the live stream. There's also some really helpful resources on that page, including a class calendar, a list of supplies that you'll need for the class. Most materials are included in the kit. But you are going to need to provide some basic things like glue and, of course, thread, that type of thing. A couple of punches you're going to have to get. So check out that list. And, Graham and Jim, we'd love to see you in there. I think it'd be fun. I think you'd enjoy it. Everybody that's taken it so far has loved it. I can say that. And it's amazing what they've been able to do with their machines. I mean, they can stitch through it. So I think it'll be good. So I also want to let you know that, we have some discontinued faux leather. And we have it on our website for 10% off, but we've just increased it another 5%. So it's now 15% off. So it includes all of the faux leather and vinyl in our kind of like our sale clearance section, except for the misprints, because the misprints are already very deeply discounted. Now, do want to mention that with our website, the sale price doesn't show up until you add something to your cart. So we're kind of working on that. But, if you add it to your cart, you'll see the sales price show up. We've also added a list at the top of the clearance page with all of the sale details. So kind of, look out for that. If you have any questions, of course, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help. So go check it out. If there's something you love, get it, because once it's gone, it's gone. We're not going to be able to get it back. Okay, we can't get it back. Our supplier has discontinued it. So check it out. And next is something I'm excited about. It has been a long time since I have done this, but we are going to do it again, and I'm happy about it, excited about it tomorrow. And it's kind of short notice, but we really wanted to kind of make an exclusive event. So it's tomorrow, and we're going to do a live leather sale at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So at 11 a.m. Pacific. So it is going to be on YouTube. It is going to be not only hides, full hides, but also we have some embossed hides that are larger that we're going to cut into smaller sections that you can use for like the Talise, this middle section, maybe even Zara. I think that would be great, or any kind of accent on bags. They are embossed lizards, they're embossed crocodile, that type of thing. And so, you know, we're pretty excited about it. We're going to hold it, you know, over at the warehouse office area. So it's going to be a little bit different. We're not going to be here. We're going to be there. And we're probably going to have some discounts available and maybe some giveaways. So if you can join, please do. 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We're not going to go on for hours and hours. It'll probably be an hour at the most, and it will be done. So hopefully you can join us. So before we move on, we need to pick our giveaway winner from last week's episode. And as a reminder, we give away a PDF pattern to one person watching live and one person who watches the replay. We have the name of everyone who entered here, and I'm going to draw one winner. And we asked you your favorite thing to do when you're not sewing. Okay. So I'm going to shake these up a little bit. And let's see who we have. So we have Charlene Lynn, I think Lyndon Mayer. Charlene says, surf the internet for more things to sew. I love it. I love it. Okay, so congratulations, Charlene. You have won. Please email share@simplyclassic.net within the next 30 days to claim your prize. And for everyone else, stick around because, of course, we have another giveaway at the end of the show. So now it's time to do some sewing. Every other week on the Bag Maker's Workroom, I show you a different sewing technique or pattern hack. And of course, today is all about the Kaplan, the man bag, the masculine bag. So that's this one here. So I made this bag last week, and I'm going to show you, we're going to play the video now, and I'm going to show you how I did this, the pattern changes. And when we are through with the video, I will come back and we're going to take a little bit closer look at the finished bag. So let's take a look at how we did it.
So the first thing I want to do is let's take a look at the Kaplan and see what we think makes it more feminine. So if you remember from one of the live streams we had when we talked about masculine bags, is masculine bags are boxy and they typically have longer flaps and are thinner, taller and thinner. So if we look at the Kaplan, we can see it kind of has a boxy shape to it. The flap is shorter. But the main thing that makes it feminine are these curves. So we want to take those out. So we're going to make pattern changes to remove the curves, not only here, but also on the flap here. Now I want to keep the curves on the side only because it makes it a little easier to sew when you're trying to do right sides together and flip. If you have a straight corner, it just makes it hard to flip and get it nice and flat. So I'm going to keep these curves here, but I am going to take this curve out here. The other thing is the hardware. I think that this twist lock makes it a little more feminine. Probably a buckle or something similar to that will make it masculine. And then, of course, we want to bring the flap to be longer than what this flap is. So let's take a look at how to make all of those pattern changes. Okay, let's take a look at the pattern pieces and what we're going to use and what we're not going to use. And the first thing I want to mention are these side pieces. We have the side piece and we have the side stabilizer piece. We're not going to use these pieces at all, so I'm just going to set those aside. We have our flap and our flap stabilizer. We are going to use those, and we're going to take this curve out here and make it longer. And then, of course, we have our main body pieces, both the main body and the stabilizer. We definitely want to change these pieces. So I'm going to start with the main body piece. I'm going to take a couple pieces of paper, And I'm just going to go ahead and line them up along this top edge. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And what I'm doing is lining this top edge here up with the point of the paper. Okay, the very top point of the paper. That's just going to kind of make this job a little easier, having to trim less as I make these changes. Okay, so basically what's going to happen is we're just going to have a front and a back, and when they're all, it's going to be solid. Okay, if you want to add a little contrast, what I would do is maybe add something down the center, but I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to keep this really simple. So I'm going to, I obviously already have a straight line here. I already have a straight line here. It's even with this top edge. So the only thing I need to do is to cut this bottom edge even with the edge of the pattern piece. Okay, now here is our main body piece. The front and the back essentially is the same. I'm going to put a little bit, actually, I think I'm just going to cut this off because I want to maintain my zipper pocket. Now, on the Kaplan, the zipper pocket has an accent piece. I think that's a little feminine. Instead, what I'm going to do is actually cut this out and put a zipper in there. That's going to make it a little bit more masculine. So I'm just going to trim the back off here. Okay, and there is main body piece. So I'll cut 2 of these. I'm going to do the same thing with the stabilizer piece. I'm going to go ahead and use these pieces here and line it up with the top edge. Same thing here. And then I'll cut the bottom edge off. I'll go ahead and just trim this back so that I can see the zipper pocket opening. Although when I cut the pieces out, I'm actually going to fuse the stabilizer to the main body piece first, and then I'll cut out the zipper opening. And that way I'm not having to try to fit one to the other. So this is our stabilizer. The bottom doesn't change, so I'm just going to use the bottom as it is. No problem there, stick that aside. Now, on the flap, again, I want to take out this curve, not necessarily these curves on the side. And I want to make it longer. So I'm going to take another piece of paper. And the first thing I want to do before I tape this on anywhere is to take and even this out. So I'm just going to go from one edge of this curve to the other edge of this curve and cut this bottom curve off. And actually, the best way to do that is going to be to use this curve corner ruler. Go ahead and line that up. So it's a 1.5 inch curve. And I'm just going to draw in where I'm going to cut. Okay, so that's what I'm going to cut off to make this a straight bottom. Okay, so that's all that is. It's just a small piece there. And then, of course, we want to add to the height. Now, when we add to the height, of course, we don't want to add coming down because that's where our curves are. So what we're going to do is tape the piece to the top and then determine how much longer we want this flap. Now, when I look at the bag, let's take a look at this one more time. You will see that the flap comes down not quite halfway. Typically, when you look proportionately at bags, very rarely does anything split it halfway. Usually it's the top third or the bottom third where the flaps hit the bag. So I don't want to go halfway, obviously. I want to make sure that this part here is down a little further. Question is, how much further down do you want? How are you going to close this flap? That's a question. Are you going to use a buckle? Are you going to use a magnetic snap? Are you going to use the magnetic snap underneath the flap? Or are you going to have some kind of accent piece that you're going to use to snap it? So I think the answer to my question is I'm going to probably maintain some kind of decorative centerpiece here. I'll probably make it thinner because I want to fit a 1 inch buckle on it. And then I'll probably just put a magnetic snap behind the buckle and buckle it on. So I want to give myself enough space for that, and I think I want to give myself 2 inches. So therefore I want to bring this flap down. Of course, we cut off part of this, so I'm going to, that's roughly 6 inches, so I'm going to increase the flap by 4 inches. This is preference. You can certainly add or subtract as much as you want, and of course you can make so many other changes to the pattern. You don't have to do these. You could certainly make the bag wider. You can make the bag taller. You know, there's many things you can do. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark where that line is so I can see it as I add my 4 inches. I'm using a 4-inch ruler, so it's going to make it super easy. Just cut this off. And there is my new flap. Okay, so I'll stick that aside. And of course, I want to make those same changes to the stabilizer. So I'm going to add 4 inches to the stabilizer piece. Let me go ahead and measure 4 inches on this scrap piece of paper that I have. Draw a line. That's where I'll tape this to. And then I'm going to use my curved corner ruler to cut off this bottom curve. Okay, now the curved corner on the stabilizer is a little bit less than the curved corner on the main part of the flap. This is about 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and line up my 1-inch curve with the edge. Go ahead and draw a line. Do the same thing on this side. And now I know where to cut to get a nice stabilizer piece that's going to fit that flap perfectly. Okay, so there is my flap piece. Now the lining pieces do not change. The upper lining does not change. The bottom does not change. All of these things are exactly the same. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of those pieces out. Zipper overlay does not change. The flap accent, again, I need to figure out what I want to do for this flap. Now I have 1-inch buckles, and I really do think I want to use a buckle here. So I'm going to lessen this. I think this is currently about 1.5 inches. I'm going to make it 1 inch. And then I'm probably not going to use this accent piece. I'm probably just going to actually stitch this accent piece to the flap all the way down. So the way this flap is constructed, we have a piece that we fold. Since I am going to be stitching this down, I want to keep the bulk out here, but I want to have a little bit of the double-sided part at the bottom. So we'll go over all that when I construct it, and I'll show you the changes. So I am going to have a change to the actual flap accent piece. I'm going to do something a little bit less wide here. My flap accent keeper I'm not going to use, set that aside. Of course, I'm going to use my slip pocket accent for the inside. I'm not going to put the accent, as I said, on the back side. I'm going to use a zipper here instead. So I'm not going to worry about cutting out this accent piece. And of course, our strap connectors are not going to change, so I'll go ahead and cut those out as well. Now, to my flap accent, I'm actually going to cut that 2 by 13 instead of the measurement that it says on the pattern itself. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all those pieces out, and then we'll go to the machine and we'll stitch the bag. Okay, before we get started, let's go over the pattern pieces. So we, of course, made the changes. I showed you how to do that. We're going to make this a more masculine looking bag. And we have 2 main body pieces. So essentially we have like a front piece and we have a back piece. Now, one thing about this is that theoretically you could put the zipper under the flap since we made our flap longer. So just kind of decide once you get it together whether you want the zipper to be in the front or the back. Either way, it doesn't matter. I went ahead and put some stabilizer on the back of both of these pieces, left it out of the seam allowance. And then once I adhered my stabilizer, then I went ahead and cut my zipper opening. Okay, so I have these 2 pieces. I also have 2 flat pieces, and if you remember, of course, we made our flap longer. So my 2 flat pieces, you can see one has stabilizer, one doesn't, because one's pretty floppy and one is not. And I cut two of these essentially identical, just the flap itself is going to be longer than the original pattern. Bottom's no different. Cut bottom, put some heavy stabilizer on the back. I also went ahead and did my crossbody strap, went ahead and stitched that already. And then I also went ahead and stitched strap connectors. So I'm just going to cut this piece in half. This is no different than the pattern itself. And we're going to have to attach these slightly different because in the original pattern, we had sides that we could stitch these to prior to stitching the bag together. We don't have that now. So I think I'm probably just going to put these in the top. I'm not really sure yet. We'll have to figure that out as we go. So I have two of these. Then I have lining. We have two upper lining pieces. Now I'm doing this. The main part of the bag is our aged brown, very masculine. And then the interior and a little bit of accent is going to be in the camel suede. I think it's going to be a really great combination. So my upper lining does have stabilizer on the back outside of the seam allowances. I also, of course, have a zipper overlay. I have a slip pocket accent, and then I did want to go ahead and cut a key fob as well. We have two exterior pockets. This is going to be for the zipper pocket that we're going to put on the outside. Of course, I have classic fuse woven interfacing on the back of all of my lining pieces. I have a slip pocket. I also have two zipper pockets, and again, the woven fuse on the back of all of these pieces. This is the interior zipper pocket. And then I have lining pieces, and of course my lining has the little squares cut out of the bottom. Again, two of these, and the lining's no different. So I'm going to put the lining together off camera. I'll go ahead and refer you back to the original Kaplan video if you need to follow along, but there's nothing different with the lining. Now, accent. I decided to go ahead and use this suede as an accent on the front. I'm going to have to kind of play with this. We'll kind of see how that goes as we go along. But the other side to that is, and this is something I didn't tell you originally, you need to cut another little strip. So you're going to need, of course, these two pieces. I gave you the measurement for this one here. I think it was 2x13, 2x4. And then we have, for hardware, a magnetic snap. We have, again, some kind of buckle, slide adjuster, something like that, that we can go ahead and, kind of put this closure together. And then just like the original Kaplan, we have two rectangle rings. Of course, I'm also going to need a slide adjuster for my crossbody strap. I'll go ahead and finish that off camera as well. So again, I'm going to put the lining together and do that off camera. Just go back to the original Kaplan video if you need to follow along. And then we'll come back and we'll finish up or put together the main part of the bag because we do have changes there, and then put it all together. Okay, I have the lining completed, and a lot of times I get asked, can I do a drop-in lining for this bag? And it's not necessarily just the Kaplan, it's basically any pattern. I'm asked that a lot. And my standard answer is yes, you always can. However, straight tops are going to be much easier to do that than a curved top. Kaplan is a good one for a drop-in lining. So I figured I'd go ahead and show you how to do that while we're doing this bag. So what that means is that I went ahead and stitched the bottom of my pocket. I also went ahead and closed the bottom and boxed my corners. So basically when I'm ready, I'm just going to slip this right inside, basically drop the lining inside the bag, and then we'll top stitch around. And the top stitch essentially is what's going to be holding it all together. So we're going to move on to the exterior. And I also went ahead and put the exterior zipper pocket together. So do this just like a regular zipper pocket. You've seen me do this a bunch of times, and I'm going to center this in the opening of my zipper cutout here. So I'm just going to peel the backing off the tape and then center that, and then we'll stitch it in place. Now, you don't have to do a zipper pocket, obviously. You can leave the pocket out. You can make it a slip pocket, either with or without the accent piece. And, you got to think about, if this is for a man, what would they prefer? And if you are lucky enough to have the person that you can ask, then that's even better. So we're just going to stitch this. I'm going to pull my threads through to the back. so I'm not going to backstitch. So as I mentioned, this is the aged faux leather in the color brown. I'm using sand thread with this. The lining is the brown chambray. And then as I mentioned, the accents is the suede camel. We're using bronze hardware. And let me think what else. I think that's about it. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this pocket. So of course, whenever you make a pocket like this, you always are going to have about 1 inch to 1.25 inches at the bottom that you need to cut off. I always do that before I close the bottom. And then whenever you do this, you want to turn this so it's right side up and just pull the main part of the bag to the side and stitch down. Much easier than trying to get at it at this angle. Okay, and there we have our zipper pocket. So from here, we're going to take the other side. We're going to put these right sides together, clip the sides, and then we're going to stitch. And this is going to be 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now from here, you can do a couple things. You can cut back these seam allowances, or you can go ahead and tape them down. I'm going to use some tape and just make sure that they stay nice and flat. Just going to help the bag be a little more symmetrical, stay upright a little better. So once I tape all of these, I'm just going to peel the backing off the tape and open up these seam allowances so that they lay nice and flat. And then you want to find the center of your front and back. So I'm just going to fold this in half, mark the center with either a marking pen or a little notch. So I'll go ahead and fold these back and then we'll put the bottom on. Okay, so now that these sides are opened up, I want to go ahead and find the center of all 4 sides of my bottom piece. And you're going to put the bottom on essentially the same way you would on the bag that's unaltered, okay, unhacked. We're doing exactly the same thing. So once I find the centers, I'm going to go ahead and work with the long sides first. Go ahead and wonder clip these in place. Now, when you stitch these longer edges, you're going to stitch to about 1/8 inch beyond the stabilizer. You don't want to go all the way to the edge. You're just going to go, essentially we're stitching a box around the stabilizer is what we want to do. So if you stop either before the edge, you're going to end up stitching on your stabilizer, which you don't want to do. And if you stitch all the way to the edge, you're not going to be able to make a clip to make the turn. So you just want to, again, go, about 1/8 inch beyond so that you can stitch next to the stabilizer on the sides. And then I'm going to stitch right along the edge of the stabilizer, giving myself, about 1/8 inch. Don't stitch right up to it. You want to give yourself a little bit of space. Okay, we're going to repeat on this other long side. Okay, once that's done, you want to, on the main part of your bag, go ahead and make a little snip up to that very point where you stop stitching. And the rest of the bag will lay flat, match up your center point with your side seam. And you can see here how this lays flat and these little corners are cut out. So we're just going to do the same thing on this side. And then whenever I stitch this, I always like to stitch it with the bag facing up and then just push the side of the bag down. And you're going to basically pick up where you left off and then stitch across and end where you left off here on this side. Okay, once the bottom is stitched on, go ahead and cut back your seam allowances. Now you especially want to cut off these corners here. You do not want to have that bulk in the bottom of your bag. And I'm cutting back to about 1/8 of an inch. Maybe we'd even say a generous 1/8 of an inch. All right, and then from here, you can go ahead and turn the bag. Okay, so here's what we have so far. Okay, pretty simple, you know, just basically a big boxed sort of corner bag, and the flap is going to be kind of what makes it. And the more I look at this, the more I think I'm going to want to put my zipper under my flap. So we'll see how that works. Really, you could almost put a zipper on both sides. One that you don't have to open the flap for, and one that you do, or just give a little extra room. So that's another idea. So from here, let's look at this flap. First thing we need to do is to take our accent piece. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to put that little cross accent piece in. I'm just going to take and stitch this directly to the bag all the way down. Just drew a line down the center, and I'm going to make sure that my two long edges meet. Okay, and that's 1 inch. Now I'm going to do the same thing with that little piece that's going to go underneath where our magnetic snap is going to go. So let me go ahead and fold this in as well. Now on this piece, I can go ahead and stitch. So I'm just going to stitch 1/8 of an inch. And then you want to take your either buckle or whatever you're going to use. I'm going to place this right on there, and I'm just going to make sure these two ends here match. Okay. Once we get this on, we're going to put our magnetic snap here in the back, and then we're going to stitch this together. So now that I know where the center is, I will go ahead and punch a hole that the tongue can go through. So I'm going to use a fairly large hole. Okay, so here's what we have. And so now what I'm going to do is, just as close as I can get, go ahead and stitch right across. This is going to be underneath, so you're really not going to see it, but we obviously want to make sure it's nice and secure. So again, I'm just going to stitch a line right across here, as close as I can get to the buckle. Okay, now from here, we want to put the male section of the magnetic snap onto the back side of this. So this is the front because this is where the tongue is. I want to put it on the back side, and I'm just going to center it right here. Okay, make a couple of marks with my silver marking pen. And I'm just going to go through one layer. I'm not going to go through both. Just go ahead and open that up. And then I'll put this in, put the back on, and then go ahead and bend these prongs back. Okay, once that's done, I'm going to stitch the bottom closed right here, okay? Just to hold all that together. Okay, I'm just going to even up this raw edge, and then just burn my threads. And then essentially we've got our little magnetic snap closure. So it's going to look like it has a buckle, but in reality it's going to be a magnetic snap. At least that's what I feel like in my head it's going to look like. So we'll see what it actually looks like when we're done. All right, so let's look at our flap. So we need to stitch this on before we stitch our flap together. And that is if you don't want to see the stitching on the back. Now, because we have a section down here that we're going to end up having to fold up, and this will be the tongue that kind of comes through here. I'm actually almost thinking that I'm okay with seeing the stitches on the back. So I'm going to put my flaps right sides together and clip them and stitch that first. Now, of course, one edge has got one side has the stabilizer, the other side does not. So I'm going to stitch with the stabilizer facing me. So I want to make sure I don't stitch on it. And then this is going to be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So whenever I have curves involved, I always try to use a 1/4 inch versus a 1/2 inch, because curves, one's convex, one's concave, and what that means is that one of the edges theoretically is longer than the other. So, and that's of course when we're putting opposite curves together. But even with these kind of curves, we just want to make sure we keep our seams minimal. So I'm going to start here at the top, go all the way around. Do not stitch across the top edge. Okay, go ahead and cut back the seam allowance, and you can either do little notches, or you can just trim it back, or you can use pinking shears if pinking shears work for you. Pinking shears and me do not get along very well. And of course you don't want to cut your stitches. If by chance you do, just go back and restitch. Okay, now that I have all my little clips in here, I will go ahead and turn the flap. And it turns so nice when you make sure you don't stitch on the stabilizer. It's just so perfect. I love it. Okay, so go ahead and wonder clip. And we also want to find the center. I think I'm going to go ahead and stitch around first. I'm going to top stitch first, and then I'll come back and top stitch the accent piece on. So when I top stitch, I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Again, I'm leaving the top open at this point. Okay, so from here, go ahead and find the center. And really, I guess at this point, we could theoretically go ahead and close this top. Unless you've got, maybe you want to put your bag tag on here or something like that. You obviously, want to leave it open for that. But since we're going to be stitching this on now at this point, we could theoretically go ahead and stitch right across. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape on here so it'll hold it in place. And I'm not going to put it all the way to the bottom though, because part of this bottom is going to need to get flipped up, and that way we don't have a raw edge for our buckle piece. Because what's going to happen is this is going to go inside the buckle piece, and essentially it's going to look like part of the buckle. I just don't want that to be a raw edge. That's the reason why I cut this so long. Okay, so flip this up. Take that and center that. It is not centered. Let me try this again. And what I'm going to do is stitch down. I'm not going to go quite all the way to the bottom yet, because again, I do want this to come up. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that and clip that bottom edge here right underneath. So let me put some more double-sided tape on here. Take this off, tuck this under so that when I stitch across, I will catch the edge there. All right, so I'll go ahead and stitch. So the first thing I'm going to do is stitch all the way to the edge and come across the very bottom. Okay, so see how now that's tucked under and there's no raw edge there? Another thing that I'm sitting here thinking about is how can I make this look even better? Rivets down here would be really cool. Maybe some kind of decorative stitch down here would be really neat. Or you can just leave it plain, however you want to do it. So now from here, I can go ahead and this is pretty much stitched together. You do see, of course, the lines on the back. Doesn't bother me. I think that's just kind of part of it. I think it's fine. Looks great. So use your imagination when it comes to this. I think you could find some really cool things to do. All right, now what we need to do is put our magnetic snap for this piece here. So I measured the width and found the center, and I measured 1 inch up. So I'm going to just make a couple of marks with my silver marking pen and install the female portion of my snap here at the bottom. Okay, female portion of the snap is in there, and from here I need to go ahead and punch a hole here so that I can put the buckle on. So this buckle is just going to slide on. Tried to get it as high as I could. Let's see if I can get that in there. There we go. Okay. So it's on there. So from here, because I'm using a roller buckle, I could theoretically put like a keeper on there just to hold that down. Or you can actually use a buckle with a keeper, which would be a lot simpler. I just happen to not have one here with me. So this is going to go like this. And then, of course, the flap will get stitched on to the bag. What this does is now we can snap and unsnap the bag without actually having to unbuckle this buckle. Okay, so it's kind of the idea behind that. So let me find the center here, and I'm going to clip this flap to the bag. And I'm going to just stitch this on using about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Seam allowance is 1/2 inch here at the top, but to base this on or to get it on, I don't want to get too deep in. Then we're going to fold this over, and that's when we're going to drop our lining in and finish it up. Okay, so let's go ahead and stitch this on first. Okay, so here is what we have. So I think that I would do something a little different here so that this piece didn't have a raw edge. Or you could just go ahead and edge paint it. Maybe I'll do that. I'll probably just do a little bit of base coat and edge paint on it. Another thing is maybe cut this piece about 2 inches longer. I'd probably solve that. So you didn't see this edge here. All right, let's talk about strap connectors next, because obviously we need to be able to connect our strap to our bag, and we haven't even talked about that yet. Now, because we have a side seam, we can't rivet these right in the center because this is going to cut our stitches and our bag is going to fall apart. We could do double rivets if you wanted to do something like that, where you kind of put this strap connector on just like you do in the main part of the bag, but you would just have to do double rivets. It's hard to get in here at this point and stitch this on. Or we could actually just go ahead and put them at the top of the bag, which is what I'm going to opt to do, and the connector will just be up here. I think that's going to be fine. So go ahead and take your strap connectors and your D-rings, or not D-rings, or you could use D-rings, but I'm going to use rectangle rings, and just fold them in half and stitch them closed. And then I'll just slide these right in as I'm doing my drop-in lining. Okay, now to finish this up, we're going to put some double-sided tape, is how I like to do this, all along this top edge so that it stays nice and crisp and flat for when I drop my lining in. So usually when I do this, you can use either 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, doesn't really matter which. I'm going to go ahead and use 1/4 inch tape, but we are folding it over a 1/2 inch. And this just kind of helps keep the tape out of the seam allowance because it doesn't go all the way to the point where you're going to stitch, which is why I like to use 1/4 inch up here. And I'm even going to put it over here where the flap is. And then we'll peel the backing off that tape and fold that edge over. So I'm just going to fold it right over the top of the stabilizer. So whenever I do drop-in linings, I usually measure the 1/2 inch at the top and go ahead and mark it with some sort of pen so that I know exactly where that is. It helps make sure everything's nice and even at the top. Okay, so from here, I'm going to slip my lining in, and then I'm also going to slip my connectors in and put them in as far as I can. You know, obviously you want to leave enough room to stitch, but you don't want to have them, you know, hanging out too far. Okay, and we're going to take this here, slide it in. Okay, so let's talk about linings that don't fit, because sometimes when you change up the way you do the bag, it just goes together a little differently. So you can see here that I actually have more lining than I need, right? You see the lining is buckling here. So I can deal with this basically in a couple different ways. You either let out your side seam on your main part of your bag, which I don't want to do because you're going to see the holes, or you can increase the seam allowance on the sides of your lining, which is what I want to do. So what I'm going to do, usually when this happens, is I will find out what that is, what that amount is. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip. Just kind of hold this down. And let's see how much we're talking about. Okay, so if I take that much out, then this will fit. So that much is equal to, basically, that's measuring like a 1/2 inch, which means you have a 1/2 inch here and you have a 1/2 inch here, so that's a full inch difference. So I'm going to take a wider seam allowance on each edge of my lining. Just going to take this out, pull this up, and then increase the seam allowance here until I can get that to fit. So I will work on that, and then we will come back and continue on. Okay, I took the lining in, that 1/2 inch on each side, and you can see that it's looking much better. Okay, it's going to fit nicely. So from here, I usually just go ahead and put some double-sided tape to hold this in place, and I'm not going to put it right on the edge. I'm just going to kind of put it over this fold all the way around. And drop-in linings are usually better, easier if you have a cylinder arm machine. If you're doing a larger bag, it's okay in a flatbed, but usually you want to have that seam stitched first at the top edge if you're going to try to top stitch on a flatbed. So we are going to move over to the cylinder arm. When I place this in the bag, I'm just going to make sure that the 2 zipper pockets are not back to back. Go ahead and put this in. I'll peel the backing off the tape. Make sure that, you know, all my edges are lined up, my seam allowances all the way around, and then once I get everything kind of situated, I'm again going to take these strap adjusters and just slide them right inside like this before I top stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this situated. We'll meet you at the cylinder arm and get this thing stitched up. Okay, here we are at the cylinder arm. I have the bag in here ready to go. I'm going to stitch along where the back flap is first. And I'm going to be stitching it more like about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so now that all that is top stitched, I'm going to attach the crossbody strap just like normal, and then we'll take a look at the bag in the front camera.
All right, so I hope that that was very enlightening. You can kind of see my process, right? Of obviously, as I went along, what I liked, what I didn't like, and we purposely kept that in this video because the thought process is so much a big part of it. Not only when I'm doing hacks, but also when I'm designing bags. A lot of times when I make these patterns, it starts out as one thing and turns into something totally different. So let me just, before we go over the bag, just ask, do you like these sewing episodes? So, of course, beginning of the year, we made a couple of changes to the Bag Maker's Workroom. And one of the things we did was every other week add a sewing episode. And they're not always going to be hacks. I think so far this year they may have been. They'll kind of be mixed. But if you get a second, whether you're watching live or the replay, just leave us a little message and let us know what you like. If you don't, that's fine too. We just, we're always looking to do things better for you. So we'd like to know what you do like and dislike. Okay, so we're going to go to the overhead and I'm going to show you the bag. And you can see here that obviously the flap is longer. The bag does still have a little bit of an angle. Okay, so what I did is I took the bag and showed it to my husband and said, would you wear this bag? And he said, well, I think it seems to me it should be more square. So it's interesting how he was able to pick up on the slight angle of the bag, which of course stayed consistent with the way the pattern was. And the reason why is because the side should have been angled out a little bit more to make it more square. Okay, even though it was a square pattern piece, to get this final square bag, you would need to have done that, angle that out just a little bit. Okay, couple things I like, couple things I don't like. I don't like all this right here. I think, and that's one of the things we showed you in the beginning, I would have made this strap here longer to be about at the end of the bag, which means another 2 inches. Of course, we made that note in the beginning. I'm fine with this magnetic flap. I think once this strap covers this magnetic flap piece or magnetic tab piece, whatever we want to call it, it would be okay. Also, I did not have a roller buckle on, or not a roller, I did not have a buckle with a keeper on it, like a center bar buckle on hand when I made this. And so I used a roller buckle. Don't like that at all. I think a buckle with a keeper would be much better. Okay, so those are the things that I would definitely change. What I do like about it is the zipper underneath the flap. I think that is really a great option. Just helps keep everything a little bit more secure. You can flip that up and of course, get either cell phone or whatever else you may need out of that pocket. And then of course, the inside of the bag is no different than the Kaplan. So you've got a zipper pocket on one side, you have a slip pocket on the other side, and I did put a key fob in here. Strap connectors were obviously added different because we did not have side pieces to actually stitch these to. So I just had to go ahead and put them in the top of the bag, which I think is, perfectly fine. Obviously it worked, and I think it does probably make it, a little more masculine in itself. So, that's the bag. Those are the changes, of course, that I would make. If you are going to sew along with us, one of the things we are going to ask is that you have the lining completed, because it's going to take us a while just to do the exterior. And I know so many of you are going to have fantastic ideas for the exterior. It's one of the things I love so much about the sew along. Okay, so we have got next, we're going to look at Artistry Avenue, and this is where we feature bags made by you. We choose 3 bags that were posted in the Simply Classic bag making community on Facebook, or that were emailed to share@simplyclassic.net. Now, if we feature your bag, you have 30 days to email share@simplyclassic.net to let us know which pattern you would like. And this is a worldwide thing, okay? If you're not in the US, please post your bags. I mean, we we feature people from all around the world, and we love that. We absolutely love that we have so many people in Australia and in Europe, everywhere that follow us, and we really thank you for that. All right, so the first bag we want to look at is by Angie from Whispering Tree Leather. She made a Roseanne using real leather, and she sent us these beautiful photos. This is really amazing leather. I love this, and I really like the way she combined the solid with the crocodile. Very, very pretty. She is a beginner leather worker, and she said that she's mostly made small things in the past, like wristlets and watch straps, and this is her very first leather bag made from a pattern, okay? And it's just unbelievable. She did a fantastic job. Next, Lori made this Kaplan using our geometric triangle faux leather. And of course, that's inspired by Prada. She paired it with some textured black faux, and it turned out amazing. I mean, the triangles by themselves are it's just a really beautiful faux leather to work with. Very easy, very, thin, but thick enough that you don't have to worry too much about, just use regular deck of the light. You don't need anything heavier than that. And this is a very, almost could be masculine to some extent, but I think that it's feminine in the way that the flap is, the black with the triangles on it. I love that. I love the gunmetal hardware. Just everything about this is really beautiful. So really great job. And also I want to remind you that the Kaplan is our featured PDF pattern of the week. So it's $12.49 this week. And the hardware kits are 10% off. So if you would like to grab the pattern, go ahead and do that. It is definitely an amazing bag. And we really haven't shown it made the way the pattern says. And this is a perfect example of it. So thank you, Lori. So finally, Tracy made the Talise, and she did the style lines hack that I showed you a few weeks ago. But she added the exterior slip pocket as well. So basically what she did is she took the front piece and she combined it with the side pieces, but she didn't do that on the back. She actually left the back the way it was and stitched it the way that the pattern says. So basically she did a hack of the hack, which I love. Okay, again, make it your own. Make it what you want it to be. That's why we sew. She used our blended faux croc, and that is actually one of the discontinued crocs. We can't get that anymore. So it's 15% off right now, just until we sell out. So if you want any of it, you better grab it. And then, of course, she did a black binding. She used our scroll motif bag tag for a really classy finish. So I absolutely love this. I love this color too. We have this in red and in blue, like this kind of bluish color. It's really beautiful, and it's really beautiful paired with black. And this is an excellent hack. I love this, Tracy. So thank you to our featured artists, Angie, Lori, and Tracy, for sharing your amazing makes. Don't forget to email share@simplyclassic.net within 30 days to let us know which PDF pattern you'd like. So before we move on to our Q&A, let's talk about our giveaways. We're giving away 2 PDF patterns of your choice. We'll choose 1 live stream winner from the chat and 1 replay winner from the comments. So if you're watching live on Thursday, here's how to enter. All you need to do is type the word March, just like the month, or like marching, right? Same thing, in the chat. Please only enter the keyword 1 time, and we are going to randomly pick a winner while we do our Q&A. And of course, this is open worldwide. So if you're watching the replay, you can also enter your win. Just leave a comment that includes 2 things: your first name and your favorite TV show or movie. And you have until next Wednesday to enter, and I'll randomly choose a winner on next week's episode. And I will tell you, my favorite movie is Forrest Gump. I just love Forrest Gump. And the second one, well, you did not know. We only asked for 1. So I'm just going to tell you Forrest Gump. Okay, so let's look at our questions. So we have a couple of people asked last week if I have any videos actually working with faux fur. Not our faux hair on hide, like what you see here, okay, but the actual faux fur, like I showed last week, kind of the fluffy fur. And I don't have any of those, but I think it's a really great question because it sparks my creativity and my thought process. And I think I would love to do a bag in it, or at least accent, right? So I have the faux fur, obviously, that I showed you last week, and my wheels are turning. And so I'm going to be doing something with that in the future for sure, because I think that's a really great thing to show, because it is a little tricky, can be a little tricky. Okay, Ether or Mary says, have you ever added a grommet type thing for headphones? I haven't, but I've seen it done before. And basically what she's talking about is in a bag. A lot of times you see them in backpacks. At the very bottom, at the very top, people will install a grommet. That way you can run your headphones through the grommet and plug it into your iPhone, your iPad, or whatever you have, your Android, and you can actually wear your headphones. And I think that's a really great idea. And maybe even if you just want to charge it, right? Maybe you're in an airport, you don't want to take it out, and you just want to be able to charge it. I think that's a really excellent thing. You can really add it to almost any bag. It's great. Okay, so we are going to look and see who our winner is. Okay, so it's L.A. Nita Best, 8460. So congratulations. You have won a pattern of your choice. Please email us within the next 24 hours. Email share@simplyclassic.net and let us know which pattern you would like, and we will get that to you. So thank you so much for joining me for the Bag Makers Workroom, and make sure you join us next Thursday, March 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for an episode about bag charms. Don't forget to submit your Simply Classic makes by posting them in the Facebook group or emailing share@simplyclassic.net. And please remember to click that thumbs up button on your way out. Till next time, everybody, happy sewing.